you some breaking news out of California. The parents of a
as his mother maintains her innocence behind bars.
Mario Ramirez is live in Riverside now, where Emmanuel's parents could make their first court appearance as early as today. Mario.
Jen, Bob, good morning. That's right. We're just outside the courthouse. Emmanuel Haro, at this point in the investigation, authorities are presuming that the 7-month-old is dead. His parents have been named suspects in the case, and they're expected to appear here at this courthouse as early as this afternoon once the DA's office files charges. And while investigators say a kidnapping never happened, as it was initially reported, Emmanuel's mother, Rebecca Haro, is speaking out from jail. She spoke with the Southern California News Group, insisting her child was kidnapped, saying, quote, "I want to be out looking for my baby," end quote. She also spoke about her husband from behind bars, saying he's a good dad and he would never hurt a baby. Now, that jailhouse interview on Sunday, the same day Jake Haro was seen in an orange jumpsuit, cuffed, with San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies searching for Emmanuel's remains near the 60 freeway in Moreno Valley. The body wasn't found, but detectives believe the baby, unfortunately, is dead. Rebecca and Jake Haro arrested at their Cabazon home Friday of last week on suspicion of murder. The story starts August 14th, when Rebecca reported her 7-month-old was kidnapped after she was attacked outside a Yucaipa store. Days later, investigators investigators claimed she, along with Emmanuel's father, Jake, had stopped cooperating, adding that there were inconsistencies in their stories. Emmanuel's disappearance leading to an all-out hunt and search for several areas in Yucaipa and Cabazon, including the couple's home. With the latest search efforts in Moreno Valley, both are now facing one count of felony murder with malice, according to Riverside County jail records this morning. And once those charges are officially filed, the two are expected to appear in court again as early as this afternoon. Right now, they're being held behind bars without bail as the search continues for 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro. For now, live here in Riverside County, I'm Mario Ramirez. Back to you.
All right, Mario. Thank you.
Going live on YouTube.
day, it takes a major turn.
First court appearance is early.
Jen, Bob, good morning. That's right. We're just outside the courthouse. Emmanuel Haro, at this point in the investigation, authorities are presuming that the 7-month-old is dead. His parents have been named suspects in the case, and they're expected to appear here at this courthouse as early as this afternoon once the DA's office files charges. And while investigators say a kidnapping never happened, as it was initially reported, Emmanuel's mother, Rebecca Haro, is speaking out from jail. She spoke with the Southern California News Group, insisting her child was kidnapped, saying, quote, "I want to be out looking for my baby," end quote. She also spoke about her husband from behind bars, saying he's a good dad and he would never hurt a baby. Now, that jailhouse interview on Sunday, the same day Jake Haro was seen in an orange jumpsuit, cuffed, with San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies searching for Emmanuel's remains near the 60 freeway in Moreno Valley. The body wasn't found, but detectives believe the baby, unfortunately, is dead. Rebecca and Jake Haro arrested at their Cabazon home Friday of last week on suspicion of murder. The story starts August 14th when Rebecca reported her 7-month-old was kidnapped after she was attacked outside a Yucaipa store. Days later, investigators claimed she, along with Emmanuel's father, Jake, had stopped cooperating, adding that there were inconsistencies in their stories. Emmanuel's disappearance leading to an all-out hunt and search for several areas in Yucaipa and Cabazon, including the couple's home. With the latest search efforts in Moreno Valley, both are now facing 1 count of felony murder with malice, according to Riverside County jail records this morning. And once those charges are officially filed, the two are expected to appear in court again as early as this afternoon. Right now, they're being held held behind bars without bail as the search continues for 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro. For now, live here in Riverside County, I'm Mario Ramirez. Back to you.
board of the Cold Case Foundation. Chris, welcome back to the show. Back to Nancy's point, when you look at that video, she makes a good point. I mean, he's just kind of standing around out there. It didn't look like he was taking them to one specific spot, at least from the angle that we have. What do you think was going on behind the scenes? Did he make some kind of promise to them and then not really live up to it once they got out there?
You know, Brian, that's probably a high probability of what's taking place here. If you'll notice, even the one detective that's standing next to him with his arms crossed, you know, he's kind of leaning off to the side like, okay, we're here. You know, what have you got for us? And of course, they've got all those resources there. So they must have had something in that interview room to prompt them to pull him out of the county jail and pull him down there.
And they must have known, Chris, this was right along the freeway. This case has garnered national attention. Obviously, the LA is a very aggressive news market. The cameras were going to show up. It almost like, I would say, does it almost embarrass cops at this point? It's almost like maybe he was playing a game with them.
Well, you know, that could be a possibility, but obviously that's going to be to his detriment in the long run. I mean, that particular part of the freeway right there is right along, you know, San Bernardino, Riverside, and San Diego County. They all kind of butt up against each other, but the 60 is a well-traveled freeway, and it looks like he's off to the side of the road. So maybe they were thinking, you know, if we take him down here, he's going to bring us back to the reenactment of potentially how this child got to that area.
So the charge as it stands now, murder with malice, but no body. Sadly, though, the detectives did say today that they do not believe Baby Emmanuel is alive. What do you think they know? I mean, even though there's no body, they must have some evidence that we don't know about to be able to move forward with these murder charges.
Yeah, I would suspect they probably have some type of digital footprint and or, you know, forensics evidence from some of the search warrants they did. And of course, they're looking for malice, right? And in California, malice is a mental state of mind, which a person, you know, intends to kill somebody. So this may go to his detriment if he is playing that game that, okay, I'm going to take him out there, burn some time up. But the prosecutor may use that against him to show that he had specific intent to kill this child.
I hate to even bring this up, but I just want to know if this is a possibility. And you know that area. Is it possible that Baby Emmanuel was dumped there and they went out there and the baby is just no longer there anymore because of animals in the area or something like that?
That is definitely a serious consideration because depending on the time frame, obviously, that particular geographic region right there is between those hills based on what I'm seeing off the video there on the 60. And of course, there's a lot of wildlife and animal activity out there. So if those cadaver dogs didn't hit on them on the first time, they probably are going to come back, maybe even, you know, without people knowing and hit it one more time just in case.
What do you make of these parents in terms of you've got the mom doing a interview with a local newspaper saying she stands by her husband. He would never hurt anyone despite this awful, awful criminal history, which we all know. But then you've got him showing up out there with the detectives. It kind of made me wonder, like, are they going to turn on each other? And is he trying to place the blame on her?
You know, that's a great point, Brian, because remember in his past case, he blamed his, significant other at that time. So this may be his same play. And of course, you know, they're going to try to, you know, flush that out pretty quickly and maybe even, you know, go to her now and say, look, this is what he's saying. And so it's going to be a he said, she said, and they're going to let the defense fight it out.
Yeah, I get the sense that he may be very, very manipulative, which I'm sure the detectives can already see through, but just based on some of his history and what we've heard about him. Chris McDonough, really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Empire, where the search continues for 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro, who is presumed dead. Investigators say the baby's parents faked his kidnapping. KTLA 5's Jillian Smuckler live in San Bernardino with the very latest in this investigation. Good morning. KTLA 5's Jillian Smuckler live in San Bernardino with the very latest in this investigation. Good morning.
Good morning, Lou. Yeah, major developments in just the past 24 hours for that search for 7-month-old Emmanuel. Now, what we could tell you is that his father was spotted over the weekend searching for his body, while his mother gave her first jailhouse interview, maintaining her innocence and standing by her story, saying she's committed to finding her son. Now, Rebecca and Jake Haro, they were arrested at their home in Cabazon on Friday on suspicion of murder with malice. They arrested the couple 8 days after the baby's mother reported that Emmanuel had been stolen from her, all while she was changing his diaper in the parking lot of a Big Five. But in a jailhouse interview with a Southern California News Group reporter yesterday, she maintained her innocence despite law enforcement accusing the couple of killing their son. She reportedly said she isn't giving up on her baby and that she wished she were out searching for him. She also allegedly shook her head when asked about rumors that days before she reported the kidnapping, she went to the Big Five, told employees that her car was burglarized, and asked whether the business had surveillance cameras. Now, her husband Jake also made headlines over the weekend. He was spotted wearing an orange jumpsuit yesterday looking for his missing baby. He was searching a remote area in Moreno Valley with detectives. It is still unclear what led them there, given it's about 10 miles south of where Emmanuel was first reported missing. But after an hours-long search yesterday, investigators say Emmanuel's body still has not been found. Now, the couple is standing by their story of what exactly happened to their baby, and they're expected to make their first court appearance tomorrow at the Riverside Hall of Justice. And back out here live, we are still waiting to find out if there's going to be another search today and where investigators are focusing on. Of course, very little details behind the scenes as to why they were searching that area just yesterday. Also, a lot of people are wondering, why is Rebecca not involved in the search? So we are still here outside the sheriff's office pressing to get some of those answers for you. And the moment we do, we will let you know. But reporting live from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, Jillian Smuckler, KTLA 5 News.
1 second, they're a neighbor you like.
should be part of every business owner's YouTube strategy. It does this thing that I like to call collapses the trust timeline. So instead of someone watching your YouTube
Christopher Corbett with the Tallahassee Police. We understand he'll be talking about cell phone records.
We've hit the pause button on this testimony to bring you some breaking news out of California. The parents of a missing baby Emmanuel, who's been the subject of a nationwide search, has just been charged with his murder. Both of those parents have. The police arrested Jake and Rebecca Haro in their Southern California home on Friday. But it wasn't until today that charges were filed against the couple, including that murder charge. The search for the 7-month-old's body is still ongoing. Court TV's Matt Johnson is in California on the ground for us. He will bring us updates on what is happening there later today. We'll, of course, bring you the updates both here and online.
Some breaking news to pass along out of Southern California. The case of missing 7-month-old baby Emmanuel has taken another turn. Both of his parents are now under arrest in connection to his disappearance. Rebecca and Jake Haro were taken into custody this morning at their home. We know that deputies searched their home after serving a search warrant and seized the father's vehicle. Emmanuel's mother says she was attacked and the baby was kidnapped on August 14th outside of a store in San Bernardino County, California, but police say Rebecca Haro had inconsistent statements about exactly what happened. There is still no sign of baby Emmanuel. Core TV will be monitoring new developments, but again, the breaking news at this hour, mom and dad both in custody, both being charged. Some breaking news to pass along out of
and why Emmanuel's parents, Jake and Rebecca Haro, were charged with murder with malice. We've been able to see the booking information for both Jake Haro, which says murder with malice, and Rebecca. We now know what was found in the search of the Haro family home and why Emmanuel's parents, Jake and Rebecca Haro, were charged with murder with malice. We've been able to see the booking information for both Jake Haro, which says murder with malice, and Rebecca Haro, again, murder with malice. Charging them with murder with malice means that there was either a specific intent to kill or there was a conscious disregard for human life. Police arrested Jake and Rebecca Haro on Friday at their family home, and police announced that they do believe Emmanuel Haro is deceased and they are currently trying to locate his body. Now, both parents, like I said, have been charged with murder with malice, and now we know why. Police stated on Friday that during the investigation thus far, numerous interviews have been conducted, search warrants have been served, digital and electronic evidence has been collected and closely analyzed, and based on the evidence, investigators determined a kidnapping in Yucaipa did not occur. It is believed Emmanuel is deceased and the search to recover his remains is ongoing. We now know what
Auto Owners has insurance for whatever comes out of left field. That's simple human sense.
Thousands of players searched for me. Thousands failed.
We are following several breaking updates in the search for Emmanuel Haro. This is a picture per KABC TV of the missing 7-month-old's dad in an orange jumpsuit with detectives searching for his son. Jake Haro and the boy's mom, Rebecca, were arrested on Friday. Both are now accused of murder in the death of their son, Emmanuel Haro, but his body has still not been found. And another twist that we're following, even though we saw Jake Haro, the dad, out with detectives, his wife, the boy's mom, is still reportedly sticking to her story that the child was kidnapped in an interview she just did from jail. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. All right, we have a lot to get to in the search for Emmanuel Haro. At the time of this recording, Emmanuel is still missing. His body has not been found. Now, sadly, this is a case where deputies are not expecting to find Emmanuel alive because both of his parents have been charged with murder. They believe that this child was killed. Here are newly released mugshots for Jake and Rebecca Haro. Both have been in jail since Friday morning in Riverside County, California. They were arrested by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. This is video that Sheriff's Office put online on Friday, showing both of them being walked out of their home. This was in the morning. It appears they were still in PJs and boxers as they were being led to cruisers to be taken into custody. All of this taking place outside Los Angeles. Now, it's unclear what the evidence really is that detectives have that pushed them to make an arrest and to believe that Emmanuel was murdered. Now, there was hope overnight that Emmanuel's body would be found. Here is an image from KABC TV of Jake Haro standing with detectives in an area off a highway about 22 miles from his house. This happened last night. Now, deputies said as Jake was there, they searched the area with cadaver dogs, but they did not find Emmanuel's remains. Now, as for Jake's wife, Rebecca, you probably saw her initial interview on KABC, her alleged cry for help, saying that her son had been abducted and she was attacked. Here's her story.
Got him out of the car seat and I laid him down and so I could get his diapers ready. And somebody said, "Hola," and that's all I remember.
Now that is an alleged lie, according to deputies in Southern California. Rebecca is also, though, now talking from jail. She just gave an interview. It was posted actually around the same time that Jake was out with detectives. And before I get into what she is now saying, let me remind you how she and her husband went public with their alleged crocodile tears more than a week ago. Let's play that soundbite by Rebecca again.
Got him out of the car seat and I laid him down and so I could get his diapers ready. And somebody said, "Hola," and that's all I remember.
So there's Rebecca, like hyperventilating on KABC. That was on August 14th. I will note, the television station says they didn't see any tears in her eyes as she gave that emotional soundbite. She claims that she and Emmanuel went to a sporting goods store in Yucaipa, California Thursday night after they were at a football game for the Haro's other son. Before going into the store, Rebecca claimed that Emmanuel needed a diaper change, so she went to change him, and that's when she heard someone say, "Hola." The next thing she knows, she says she was on the ground and Emmanuel was gone. Now, she had the black eye to prove it, right? That she was attacked. Well, that story seems to really be falling apart. We've been told that that bruise looks like it had been healing for a good amount of time. And it's come to light that she actually reportedly had that black eye nearly 2 weeks before her call to law enforcement and her story of this alleged abduction. Here's what Jake Haro said to cameras from KABC as well.
Whoever took our son, please give him back.
Hey, before we get back to this episode of On the Case, one of the most watched shows on all of YouTube, I need to take a moment to talk about our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million, which was 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a community rallying around this family. I mean, if this was a true story, this would be terrifying, that this boy would be abducted in the parking lot of a sporting goods store and his mom assaulted. But law enforcement, in the hours after, the days after that story was first told, they say they found inconsistencies in what Rebecca was saying, and they confronted her about it. And that is when they say she stopped cooperating with the investigation. In the days after that, law enforcement served multiple search warrants at the Haro's home in a rural part of Southern California. You're looking at drone video here by missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, who has come on this show multiple times with us as he has been following this case from Southern California. You can see members of law enforcement in this drone video taking bags of evidence from around the property. Now, this couple in TV interviews, they appeared to be a unified front, sitting next to each other, calling for more to be done in hoping that their son could be found. But then last night, a very interesting development, because on the same day that you had Jake out searching with law enforcement, or at least standing there as they searched, again, they didn't find Emmanuel's body, as they were searching in an area with Jake Haro, Rebecca yesterday did an interview with a reporter from the Southern California news group. And she, according to this interview, is not giving up her story. She said, quote, "I will not give up. I will not give up on my baby." She maintained that she is telling the truth, that she was assaulted and Emmanuel was kidnapped. The reporter did note that the black eye, it's still noticeable, but it has significantly faded under Rebecca's face. She also, it doesn't appear to have any other wounds. If she was to fall on the ground after getting punched, it seems that that small little black eye was the only injury that she had after this alleged assault. Now, it's unclear if Rebecca has had any communication with her husband since her arrest. It's also unclear if she has a lawyer or any sort of representation. She is due in court tomorrow, as well as Jake. We do know that Jake has an attorney. His lawyer's name is Vincent Hughes. He went on News Nation and said his client is innocent, asked why more wasn't being done by law enforcement to search for a boy that his client said was kidnapped and missing. He said his client was cooperating with law enforcement. Here's more of what he said.
Why have Rebecca and Jake stopped cooperating with the police if they're desperate to find the baby and the police are looking for the baby?
I don't know where the statement that they stopped cooperating came from, Ashley. I spoke to the detectives yesterday, offered for Jake to continue to speak with them, have not been made aware of any requests today to speak with Jake. I don't represent Rebecca. That needs to be very clear, but I have not been asked to produce Jake. I offered to produce Jake. They voluntarily turned over all of their electronic devices, including the passwords. I think that's something that's huge that nobody has been made aware of.
Now, that interview was prior to Jake's arrest. When his client was arrested, we reached out to Hughes' office. We spoke to an assistant who said that he would get back to us, and we have not heard back at the time of this recording. There are several major questions that remain unanswered right now in this story. The biggest ones, of course, where's Emmanuel? What happened to Emmanuel? But it's also unclear the last time anyone saw this boy. True crime blogger Annie Elise told News Nation that it's been at least a month, according to people who she has spoken with. It's also been reported that people didn't see Emmanuel at that football game that his mom claims they were at before she says she was assaulted. It's also been reported that the Haros were in the parking lot of that sporting goods store in Yucaipa weeks ahead of the night that Rebecca says she was attacked, and the couple allegedly asked employees of that sporting goods store where their security cameras were, because at the time they were claiming their car had been broken into. Then you just have to wonder what Jake told detectives yesterday to bring him to that field. Was he just toying with them? Or does he truly know where Emmanuel's body is? And is he completely splitting from his wife's story that she was attacked? Now, while we're here talking about Jake, it's also important to talk about his history. In 2018, he was arrested for willful child cruelty. He was convicted of that in 2023, and he's currently on probation. And that has raised a lot of questions for prosecutors and how he was able to get that deal. The Daily Breeze media outlet has an affidavit from that case. It says that Haro's 10-week-old daughter was sent to the hospital with fractured ribs, just 10 weeks old. True crime blogger Abby Blabby spoke to the adoptive mom of that little girl, who's now 7 years old. And the woman says the girl's blind, she can't speak, all because of what Jake Haro allegedly did. Haro also was expected in court next month for allegedly violating his probation on that case for having a firearm. Now, he is charged with murder, just like his wife, and both are due in court tomorrow on those charges in Riverside County, California, as the search for little Emmanuel continues. Joining us now once again is missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, who has been following this case on the ground in Southern California. And Steve, right now you are where we see these images of Jake Haro yesterday with law enforcement. They weren't able to find Emmanuel here. What are you seeing out there right now?
Well, I haven't seen any search parties out here today. If they are, they're not in the immediate area. Right behind me is the area just over that ridge. I've been taking a look by drone. There's not anything going on in the area. It was really kind of a bizarre circumstance yesterday, with what happened.
What do you think? I mean, we can only know, only detectives at this point know what Jake Haro told them in custody, that got him the opportunity to go out to this area. And there was this hope that this was, in a very sad case, the potential that we could find Emmanuel's remains, and it didn't happen. I guess, what do you make of that? Because, I mean, at this point, Jake Haro is accused of being, he looked right into the camera as if that there was a kidnapping, so he's not someone to trust. But what do you make of the fact that nothing seems to have come of that whatsoever?
It's all right. I mean, it's not a regular thing for an inmate to be taken out of custody like that and be taken to a crime scene location. It's in rare circumstances, in cases where body's hard to find. I don't think they would bring him out here and really felt confident in the information, whatever information he was giving them. And that it's bizarre. And they didn't seem to spend a whole lot of time here either. They wrapped up fairly quick. You would think that if he was like, I know it was this general area, they would have left search and rescue out longer, they would have left the canines out longer. We saw detectives searching out in the field for a while. I don't know, maybe they weren't looking for some other type of evidence. Maybe it had been moved. Maybe there's a cell phone. Maybe there's something else. Although they did have, canines out there. So it's really, it's strange. If it seems like they gave up fairly quickly, or lost faith in his statements fairly quickly.
Steve, the next question is a pretty morbid question, but that's the direction that this story's taken now that it's a murder investigation. It's unclear when the last time anyone saw Emmanuel Haro. It's been speculated at least a month. I mean, long before this alleged story of a kidnapping that his mom said outside the sporting goods store. I mean, realistically speaking, and this is the morbid part of the question, I mean, what exactly could law enforcement find? How much could law enforcement find when it comes to actually locating the remains of Emmanuel Haro?
Well, it's going to depend if he's above or below ground. So let's say he's above ground, which is what it looked like how they were looking yesterday. This is, we've been in a heat wave here, and this is already a hot part of Southern California. So 100-degree weather, if it's been a month, a small child, the decomp process will happen pretty quick. And then also this type of area, there's predators out here. There's coyotes, mountain lion, there's all types of stuff out here. So, and that we see in search and rescue all the time. Predators will spread remains and whatnot. However, cadaver canines can still pick up that scent, and so they would be able to find something, and from there kind of piece it together.
That was going to be my next question, just because I think for us on the outside, we probably take for granted how effective a dog can be in a search. I know the dogs were at the Haro's home when they were looking for evidence there. I mean, how long ago could a body have been put somewhere and for a cadaver dog still to pick up on a scent?
Oh, cadaver dogs can pick up 100-year-olds. So they train them on Civil War grave stuff. It's amazing what they can do. But the canine is just doing a task. It's playing a game. It's really the handler has to be just as well trained as well, because if they're not picking up the detections from the canine, it's a little different with cadaver dogs or HRD dogs. If they don't just trail right to a location of a body. I mean, I've been on searches before where a person's been missing a long time, and that those cells, that scent that the canines are trained to pick up on, has actually gotten into the soil and grown up into tree roots, and so they'll hit on a tree. You have to backtrack, so it really depends on the situation. But now something like this, where we're talking about something that's been out here a month, it's going to be a lot easier. But I have also been on searches where canine handlers clearly have missed the signals. I think that happened in the Chris Watts case. I didn't really follow that case too closely, but I heard that was something that happened there.
We were talking before we started recording just a little bit about the jurisdictional aspects to how this is going to play out, because tomorrow is when both of them are listed, according to online court records, to be in Riverside County, California, in court, but their court people could not confirm or deny whether or not that's actually going to happen. San Bernardino County is the agency that arrested the couple. They have been working the case since Rebecca Haro claimed that she had been assaulted in the parking lot in Yucaipa. How could that come into play? Just with how you know the area and the jurisdictions and the lines and everything that's kind of playing out with this.
So this is something I've been wondering about, because so the way counties run, the I-10, which runs east-west, basically is the border of Riverside and San Bernardino County. So at the Big Five store in Yucaipa, that is in San Bernardino County. However, their home in Cabazon is in Riverside County. Now, if they've determined that was a fake kidnapping and everything really happened at the home or in Riverside County, it would be their jurisdiction. However, the arresting agency was San Bernardino, but they're being held in Riverside. So I don't know, unless they're going to do this as a multi-jurisdictional, or if they're still working out who exactly is going to prosecute this. I'm not sure, but it seems that it's the charges that were filed. It seems were filed by the Riverside County DA's office, but with San Bernardino being the arresting agency. So I'm not 100% sure. It's confusing.
Right. And it's interesting too, and I know we've talked about this, that it was Riverside County that dealt with the case involving Jake Haro in his previous child cruelty case dating back to 2018. So, and there's a lot of questions there about how that played out. As far as this case, still even, I mean, I think last night when you saw the images of Jake Haro and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is, how this story potentially ends in terms of finding this boy and that they're coming clean on what actually happened. Then you have Rebecca talking to a newspaper reporter from jail, and she's sticking to the story. The fact that you see Jake out with detectives, though they didn't find anything, and then Rebecca still claiming that she was attacked, that the boy was kidnapped. What does that tell you about what's going on inside the jail and how detectives are handling this right now?
Well, they're doing what we had talked about last time. They're probably trying to do, which is create a division. I mean, they couldn't be more polar opposite. Literally, she's giving that interview at the same time that Jake is out here in a field with detectives. So he's rolling clearly. You think he's rolling on her, probably not himself. And I picked up the affidavits in support of the arrest warrants from the 2018 case. And he did the same thing in there. The detective actually notes in the probable cause affidavit that came in a couple different times, came into the police station and said, I really couldn't imagine it at the beginning, but now I'm convinced it was, the baby's mother, and trying to lay down the story about how it was not him, it was the mother, and so he's selling her out, and hey, maybe it's true. Who knows? I'm sure it's probably they both had a hand in it, but it seems like the same thing here. Like Jake's trying to save himself. He's smart enough to know that taking them on a false field trip out here isn't going to help him one bit. So I think there's got to be something to this out here.
Right, because that's the thing is, like, if you're going to lead detectives out there and be like, oh, this is definitely where it happened, and then you don't find anything. And for them, to your point, I mean, they're not out there today. You would think if there was a credible lead that they would at least still be searching, but we haven't had any reports today that they're still looking around there, to at least our understanding. If they're in court tomorrow, it'll be interesting to see what comes out. And then to your point about the kind of the separation of the two, it even goes back to Jake having his own attorney, who I assume is giving him counsel. And then here's Rebecca talking to a local news reporter, still sticking, and they're on completely two different sides. So something it feels like it's heading that direction. This might be a difficult question to answer, but when you look at I just think of the area I see behind you, Steve, and I think of Rebecca and Jake Haro. I mean, can someone, even for as vast as the area is, I mean, I don't get the sense that they are avid outdoors people that could handle the terrain to be able to even bring, if gosh, they took young Emmanuel and then put him somewhere, just from what we've seen about them, like, frankly, they just don't appear to be in great shape. And like, so it just seems like that limits where the body could actually be.
I think he unfortunately was probably either tossed from the vehicle, because there was like a irrigation, underpass, or they didn't go very far into that. I don't think they drove into the area because that gate, I think, is locked all the time, although it's private property. I get the same impression. I don't think he's going to be far off the road. That's why we didn't see search and rescue or detectives going too far up into those hills. They seem to be looking close to the bridge area.
Yeah, and however this story continues on, it's obviously just an incredibly sad story, and we'll see how all of it plays out. And if they're in court tomorrow, we'll continue to watch for that. Missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, thank you for taking time to speak with us as you've been searching on your own here in this case. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.
Accused of killing their 7-month-old son just did face a judge for the first time since they were arrested last week, and the bail for Rebecca and Jake Haro was set at $1 million each. Their son Emmanuel has been missing now for nearly 2 weeks, but family members say they haven't seen the baby in about a month, long before his mother reported him to be kidnapped. The update now from News Nation West Coast correspondent Nancy Lew's live in Riverside. What's the latest, Nancy?
Well, Connell, it was just an initial court hearing. It lasted less than 5 minutes. Both Jake Haro and Rebecca Haro in the hearing in their prison jumpsuits. This is video just in, the pool video from the arraignment. It wasn't an arraignment because it's been postponed until next week. It's been pushed to September 4th, and that's when they will face murder charges. The charge is felony murder with malice. They are both represented from by a public defender. You heard from him earlier. The pushed arraignment to September 4th because they need to gather more information from law enforcement. But in the courtroom, they sat on opposite sides. Jake in a red jumpsuit, he had glasses on. She was in a blue jumpsuit, and you can definitely see that the black eye that she has faded quite a bit. Both of them chained at the arms as well as at the ankles. They did not appear to look at each other at any point. And Connell, they also both face a misdemeanor charge of making a false police report. That, of course, linked to that initial claim 2 weeks ago now of a kidnapping at a sporting goods store. She had claimed that someone knocked her out while she was changing the baby's diaper in the parking lot of that store, and when she came to, the baby was gone. And then the sheriff's department then determining that this is a case of murder based on evidence. We have not heard much yet about that evidence. There is a news conference planned tomorrow with the sheriff as well as the DA, so we possibly could hear more. But the bottom line, Connell, also is that the remains of baby Emmanuel
still have not been found. So
Right.
where is baby Emmanuel?
Is it usual, because on the complaint is with them together, so is it usual to split them apart to give them different attorneys, or, because I would assume they would have had the same attorney for one case judged by the DA's complaint, but you're saying that's not the case?
No, if the factual situation calls for one or more individuals than one to be charged with a crime, then they'll all be on the same criminal complaint. It's just they will all have different attorneys.
Were you consulted on the $1 million bail, and if so, how did it arrive at that determination?
The bail is set by schedule. So for now, because count one is a charge of murder, the schedule, which is a predetermined amount, is set at $1 million.
How did they seem to you? Did you talk to them together or separately?
I can't really get into that. You saw them as well as I did in court. So hopefully that satisfies a little bit of what you need to know. I have another matter on the fifth floor.
Bail amounts for what case? The $10,000 and the $35,000?
There's trailing cases out of the Banning Court, minor matters that Mr. Haro had. So those simply are continued behind the murder case, and then we exonerated the bail bond.
Because he was on probation.
To tell you the truth, I don't know all the details about that, but when you exonerate the bail bond, meaning that he's not on bail in those cases.
Do you expect him to show up for the felon in possession of a firearm hearing on September 2nd?
So that's information I don't know. I'll have to dig in, depending upon which individual we keep, right? But for now, the main case, the controlling case, is the case you're here on, and that's reset here in Riverside. All other cases will be on the same calendar here. It should be in Riverside.
Do you know why these private attorneys kind of faded away?
I don't. I can't speculate on that.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news.
Back in 2009. Since then, I've done literally thousands of polygraphs. The majority of the polygraphs that I conduct now are criminal defense polygraphs, trying to help people prove them that they're innocent of whatever they're being accused of. It's not unusual for somebody who's represented by an attorney to decline taking a polygraph. Doesn't mean that they're not going to take one. The attorney may hire somebody like me to do a polygraph to see how they do. If they fail, they never tell anybody that they took a polygraph. That's done quite frequently. I've done probably 3 with the same circumstances over the past month that fit that category. It is used in a lot of cases where somebody, they come forward and they say, hey, I had nothing to do with this crime. And in this case, I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my child. I want to prove myself innocent. I want to show the world that I had nothing to do with this. Help me find my kid. That they would submit to a polygraph. But again, the male individual has got prior contacts with law enforcement, so the reason why he's lawyered up.
We're in a situation here where there's so many unanswered questions, but as it pertains to polygraphs, people always say, "Oh, polygraphs suck. They're not accurate. They don't tell the story." How accurate are these things? I know it's a matter of who's giving it, right? It's a lot to do with the examiner, correct?
It has a lot to do with the examiner. I have 2 cases right now, one of which I have a court order which will allow me to bring my polygraph equipment into Rikers Island and conduct a polygraph. Probably going to get that done over the next week or so. I have another one that I'm waiting for the judge to authorize it. I try to explain to people all the time. They'll ask me, well, how accurate is the polygraph? Why isn't it allowed in court? Is it allowed in court? The standard answer is that it's not allowed in court. That's the standard answer. But I've testified in court regarding polygraph. I know other cases which have been allowed in federal court regarding polygraphs.
Right.
So it's really up to the judge whether or not the judge will allow it. Most of the time, the prosecutor or the district attorney's office will look at it. They're going to look at the examiner to see what their qualifications are to make sure that they're legitimate and they have an expertise in polygraph. They're going to take that. They're going to look at the entire polygraph process. Everything gets wrapped up. All my charts, audio, video, everything gets sent to the district attorney's office or the prosecutor. They will do a quality control of it. They'll have a legitimate polygraph examiner take a look at it to make sure things were done correctly, to make sure that the question formulation was correct. All of the proper protocols were followed. Once that's done, a lot of times in cases that I've been involved in, several have been robbery cases where the police just happened to grab the wrong kid. And they were identified by the victim. The victim mis-ID'd these individuals, and they just happened to say it was them and it wasn't. In two separate cases that I did in Queens, both robbery cases, both of these cases, the district attorney's office deferred prosecution.
Because of the polygraph.
They looked at the polygraph. Now, don't get me wrong. They kind of knew something didn't smell right with the case.
Right.
And it was a case, both of these cases were victim identification cases.
Right,
so
right.
with victim identification cases, they can be off sometimes. And in these cases, it didn't smell right to the DA, so they used the polygraph and deferred prosecution on both of these cases.
Let me ask you something, Tim, as it pertains to the mother, Rebecca. If they were to administer a polygraph in a situation where they wanted to just see if her story was legit, like, hey, to ascertain if this story was a conjured up story or if this kid was missing for days in the past, because as we know in these cases, the families, a lot of these times, they make up a story. We don't know if this story was just like the day that he both decided, hey, let's tell the story. We can't go with this farce anymore. I think it's just important that people understand is that sometimes police in these preliminary investigations want to put somebody under a polygraph just to actually corner them and say, hey, you failed the polygraph when we asked you if this incident actually happened and that your son was abducted on this day in question. Just didn't even get to that point,
Well, we know time doesn't matter with the polygraph, right? So it doesn't matter how much time has passed. I did a polygraph on a homicide case that was over 30 years old. I went up to a state facility, did the polygraph, the individual failed. So time is not going to make a difference, and it's done all of the time. Local jurisdictions do it. Federal agencies do it, FBI does it. They will evict them in or complain it in just to verify the story. Hey, we just want to make sure everything's up and what you're saying true. Just want to verify.
Yeah.
Have a way of talking people into doing it. It's pretty smooth. But once they lawyer up,
it's a wrap.
The lawyer's going to say no. At the time, the lawyer's going to say no. Had lawyers call me up and say, hey, they want to do a polygraph. I want you to do one first. Okay? Because the lawyer wants to know if his client is guilty or not. Yeah. So I've done the polygraph and, lo and behold, the individual passed the polygraph. And then they went to the police department and they did a polygraph and they passed my polygraph. They're passing the police department's polygraph. Law enforcement, they do use polygraph as a tool. It's used as a tool all of the time to help them with these cases to verify the information. Now, keep in mind in this case, right, it is possible that she had nothing to do with the crime or the disappearance.
And he did.
And he did.
And was using her and her story presented to the media. Oh, look, she's the victim. She got beat up when in fact, he probably beat the shit out of her and, enough of it killed his son. Again, nobody knows at this point.
Don't know.
On that search area, the difficulties, some of the challenges that ground searchers would come into play here, if like Search Midwest was on it, what would go into that and how difficult or how easy would it be?
It looks very impressive. It looks overwhelming. But if you look at just the average Joe, they're only going to be able to get to certain specific areas. The real tall peaks of these mountains and the tops of these things, you can kind of rule that out. So basically, if I was doing the search, I would be concentrating on the flat pieces. I would be anything that would be accessible to a small car, SUV, 4x4. Those would be my hot spots. He's not going to work at this. He's wanting to get rid of this as fast as he possibly can without being detected, not staying in the area too long. It's a dump and go. And it sounds like he may have thought this out. Now that plays into it. So if it's something that is, it just happened, a no shit moment, then, they're not going to go too far into this. Now, we don't know if he thought this thing out and planned this out. Did he go and pre-dig an area? And when this was done, then all he had to do was go, drop it in, cover it up, and go. So there's a lot of things that we're not being told in this, we're not going to learn, but there's a lot of working pieces behind the scenes. But as far as from a search perspective, drones number one. I would have used the technology that we have from Shane that you can tell if a piece of ground has been disturbed. That would take a lot of the equation out of this for ground pounders. Use your technology first and then go into it as a secondary, and then throw in the dogs as your third choice. That way you've hit this damn thing with everything that you've got. So when you leave there, you feel pretty comfortable that you haven't missed a thing.
Yeah, like you always say, you want to throw the kitchen sink at it. Brian, who do you got there?
This is Canine Siri.
And
that's her favorite yellow ball that she's trying to get me to throw to her.
Yeah, and I heard a ruckus in the background. That was her jumping on.
Yeah.
There was multiple cadaver dogs there. I did see many different angles with different news shots, and it seemed like there was a lot more, obviously, ground searchers than there were dogs. But talk about the cadaver dogs and what their capabilities are as it pertains to this search. You're looking for a 7 to 9 month old baby that may have been discarded more than 2 weeks ago. They reported August 14th. It's now the 25th. They were out there on the 24th. How would they go about this? What's the procedure? How does this go in a search like this?
The main thing with bringing the dogs in is the dogs are able to cover a lot of ground a lot faster than human ground searchers can, especially if it's terrain that's hard to see, difficult visibility, lots of scrub, lots of brush, lots of trees. Those dogs are able to detect and move through those areas a lot quicker. And then obviously the dog's nose, I mean, that's why we bring them in. A dog's nose is 10,000 times more powerful than a human's nose. And Not only that, a dog smells in stereo. So when a dog it takes odor into their nose, they can determine if it's coming from the right nostril or the left nostril, and direction and change and work to that area. Dogs do what we call working the scent cone. And so they're walking in the odor until there is no odor. Then they'll turn around and go back through the scent cone, and they work those negatives like, okay, there's nothing here, let's go back. There's nothing here, let's go back, until they can narrow that cone down to the point or the origin or the source of the odor.
Now, Brian, I have to ask you this. They searched all day yesterday on Sunday. They didn't go back, at least known to us, to this location, because news reporters are following this. You know how they do it. If the cadaver dogs did not pick up any sense where Jake Haro told them he disposed of baby Emmanuel, and the cadaver dogs went out there into that particular area, what's the percentage of, is it 100%? Is it 50%? I mean, I know you probably can't put a percentage on it, but how good are these dogs at clearing an area that they went in for hours yesterday and they said nothing? They found no sign of human remains, like no blood scent, no human remains scent. How good are they?
What you're talking about is a terminology that we use called probability of detection. So what's the probability of detection? When we search this area, what's the probability that if the target we're looking for is in the area, what's the probability percentage that we would have found it? And I can tell you right now, 50% or below is pretty common, pretty average for a probability of detection. In order to get something higher, up into the 70s, up into the 80s, actually requires multiple searches over multiple different operational periods. So when they say that, you know, they didn't find anything, what they're actually saying is their dogs had no behavior change. So when you're searching with your canine, the job of the canine handler is to read the dog's behavior. For example, my dog, I know when she gets an odor, she has a very, very distinct behavior change. She slows down. She stops moving fast. When she's searching, she's going. When she slows down, that's an indication that she might be in odor. When she's searching, her tail flies like a flag. It's up and she's having a good time. When she gets in odor, that tail drops and starts hanging low. And then her third tail is her ears. If something has piqued her interest, her ears normally lay down, but when she's interested in something, the ears go up. And so, you know, that's how we can tell, like, okay, my dog's behavior is indicating that she's got odor, and that's when we work to bring the dog to the source of the odor. So in searches, like we did a search over the weekend, and every area that I put my dog in, her behavior never changed. And what that tells me is, you know, there's no sign of the person that we're looking for in the area that we were searching.
Now, Brian, you said multiple searches at different times. Now, there were multiple dogs at that location, cadaver dogs. Do they do these in shifts? Because people want to know about that as well. Isn't it true that there is only a certain amount of time that you can get from a working dog to go out there? You've got heat, you've got in the wildlife where you got to watch about snakes, but definitely the heat has to take a toll on them.
Absolutely. Heat is a factor. Terrain is a factor. If there's a lot of elevation change, that's going to wear your dog out faster. And then the other thing that people don't realize is scent work is very taxing on the dog's brain. When they're out there, she's evaluating every odor that she comes across. And the easiest way to explain it is when you go into the house and grandma's got a pot of beans on the stove, what you smell is the conglomeration of odors that is the pot of beans. Mm-hmm. You can't detect, oh, grandma put ham in the beans just from the smell. You can't say, oh, you know, grandma put too much oregano in the beans just from the smell. A dog can do that. A dog can take a conglomerated odor, many odors, and separate that odor into multiple scent pictures and say, okay, that's not a target, that's not a target, that's not a target, that is a target. And that's what we do is we work hard to imprint these dogs on target odors. And for a cadaver dog, that's going to be human tissue, blood, bone, hair, teeth, skin, you know, whatever we can get.
Biological matter. You know, that's an interesting statement that you made there, and obviously a true one here. But many times when these monsters who murder their own children or just murder somebody, they will discard them like garbage, and they will discard them amongst garbage. Looking at this location, given the mountainous terrain and so forth, what are some of the challenges that cadaver dogs have in finding the remains of a little small 7 to 9 month old baby?
The biggest challenge is odor movement. Most cadaver dog handlers study scent theory, and scent theory tells us that odor moves and behaves in unusual ways. Things that you wouldn't normally expect. You think, oh, well, it's coming from over there, I smell it. But that's not necessarily always the case. Odor can move up, it's called chimney, and it can move up through the trees and then catch a breeze and drop down on the ground 20, 30, 40, even 100 yards away. So where you're smelling it over here, it's actually coming from way over there. So that's the biggest challenge. And with the hills and the valleys and the terrain changes, in the morning, you know, odor can go downhill, and in the afternoons, the odor may move uphill. And it's always a challenge for a canine handler to put their dog in the best position to make the find. And so understanding scent theory is a big part of that. And a big part of what we do is more search and recovery than it is search and rescue. just simply because we don't get involved in these cases until after the fact. And that's just the way it is. In Oklahoma, we don't have huge wilderness areas where people get hopelessly lost when they're hiking. So most of the time, our missing persons are autistic children, seniors with dementia. There's a lot of different reasons why people can go missing. We don't get the opportunity to do a lot of the live rescues like you see in Colorado and New Mexico. We just came back from a deployment in Texas, and my dog worked 4 days on, 1 day off. It's just a matter, of course, you want to make sure that you're taking care of your dog during the search and after the search. You want to make sure that you're keeping your dog extra hydrated. You want to make sure that they have everything that they need, that you're checking them over, you're checking their paws, you're checking their limbs, you're making sure that they don't have any injuries. For my dog, 2 to 3 hours is her max operational period. Some people can search a little longer, some a little less. But for me and my dog, 2 to 3 hours, if we're going to stop, I'm going to make her stop. We're going to come in, we're going to cool off, we're going to break, we're going to make sure she gets plenty of liquid.
Right.
We're going to make sure that she gets electrolytes.
It's the right thing to do. These dogs are our best friends. These are hardworking dogs that, like you said, will continue to work.
We absolutely go to training. I actually started my training before I ever even got a dog. I went to classes and learned about scent theory and learned about the legalities and the laws and the things that go behind that. And then I trained all my dogs myself. I've trained down in Texas with the first detection canine out of one of the colleges down there at College Station. So we are constantly training and learning ourselves, but learning how to read the dog's behavior, that's just one of those things that, the behavior change, it's not taught, and every dog is different. And that comes from spending the time working with your dog over and over in every kind of condition, every kind of environment, that you can imagine: hot, cold, wet, dry, whatever. We train in all the elements so that you understand what your dog does in the situation.
The search for baby Emmanuel. We saw the search groups out on Sunday, and today there was no searching.
Right now at 11, new developments in the case of baby Emmanuel. His father seen in a prisoner jumpsuit today, helping detectives search through a field in Riverside County.
Turkey vultures, hell, you'll see 30 of them above something that's dead, about the size of a rabbit. So a human, from what has been studied, turkey vultures alone can actually strip flesh off to the bone in less than 8 to 10 hours.
Emmanuel, his father, seen in a prisoner jumpsuit today, helping detectives search through a field in Riverside County.
Let me just say, the father did not help in the search. The father was there, the monster was there to direct them to where they dumped this baby.
If you're looking for a business loan,
I just want to correct
an SBA loan
reports,
is
and I
one
know
of your
reporters
best
have
options.
a job to do, and I
Why
get
is
it.
that?
They have
To
to
start
make it
with,
sound
the
nice.
small business.
But
This
make
is
no
where-
mistake, ladies and gentlemen, this monster, this evil demon did not help search for the very baby that he murdered, his son. He did not help. So let's get that straight.
Haro, the baby's father, Jake Haro, was also at the location with detectives.
In my experience, when somebody is being let out and being escorted to a particular area to look for a body who has been unaccounted for and they believe is a victim of a murder, that tells me that the person is sharing enough information.
I want to just piggyback off of what retired LAPD Detective Moses Castillo said here. This perp, this monster, Jake Haro, he is separated from his wife, Rebecca. So there's a chance here, ladies and gentlemen, there's a chance that he is telling investigators that the wife did it. You know, that pointing the finger at each other. There's a chance that he is telling them that my wife killed the baby. This is where she dumped him. This is what she told me. it could be something as sinister as that, or it could be something as simple as he wants to maybe get some leniency, because as we know, in his previous charges of torturing and brutally assaulting his daughter, he received a slap on the wrist, 6 months. So maybe for cooperation, they promised him something. There's those two possibilities. And there's also a third possibility, that he was trying to clear his conscience, which I doubt. I doubt that. But that could be one of three possibilities of why he went out. Given the mountainous terrain and so forth, what are some of the challenges that cadaver dogs have in finding the remains of a little small 7 to 9 month old baby, Brian?
Absolutely, the biggest challenge is odor movement. Most cadaver dog handlers study scent theory, and scent theory tells us that odor moves and behaves in unusual ways. Things that you wouldn't normally expect. You think, oh, well, it's coming from over there, I smell it. But that's not necessarily always the case. Odor can move up, it's called chimney, and it can move up through the trees and then catch a breeze and drop down on the ground 20, 30, 40, even 100 yards away. So where you're smelling it over here, it's actually coming from way over there. So that's the biggest challenge. And with the hills and the valleys and the terrain changes, in the morning, odor can go downhill. And in the afternoons, the odor may move uphill. And it's always a challenge for a canine handler to put their dog in the best position to make the find. And so understanding scent theory is a big part of that. A dog can take a conglomerated odor, many odors, and separate that odor into multiple scent pictures and say, okay, that's not a target, that's not a target, that's not a target, that is a target. And that's what we do is we work hard to imprint these dogs on target odors. And for a cadaver dog, that's going to be human tissue, blood, bone, hair, teeth, skin, whatever we can get.
That's an interesting statement that you made there, and obviously a true one. But many times when these monsters who murder their own children or just murder somebody, they will discard them like garbage, and they will discard them amongst garbage in garbage containers. We see people go to different large communities where multiple people are taking their garbage, and they figure, mix in. These dogs, they can detect the difference between human smell, human odor, decomposing human odor, and garbage or anything else, correct?
If the dog is trained properly, absolutely. That's what we call proofing. So one of the things we do is we proof our dogs off of common distractions that you might find.
Again, this isn't indicative of exactly what they did during the whole course of the 10 or 12 hours or however many hours they were out there. There was a lot of personnel there. This is what the news has fed us. I want to talk, Dave and Brian, about the indigent wildlife that's out there. I mentioned in the beginning of the show, Moreno Valley 60 freeway at Gilmore Springs Road. I did a search. It's about 26 miles from the residence and 20-something miles from the alleged reported abduction, which we know is bullshit. So it's a 20-some-odd mile distance from the residence. I looked up the wildlife. They put feeder deer, mountain lions who feed on the deer, bobcats, coyotes, mule deer, wild donkey, turkey vultures, reptiles, birds, raptor-like hawks, rattlesnakes, spiders, tarantulas, red diamond rattlesnakes, South Pacific, highly toxic and venomous rattlesnakes, gopher and king snakes. Dave.
Turkey vultures alone is enough on a child to just take that down to absolutely nothing. Your snakes, your things like that, they're not gonna do anything with the human, the body itself. It's gonna be the coyotes, the bears, the
mountain lions.
Again, they're gonna be drag and go. It's a quick meal. I mean, it would be nothing for one coyote to sit there and drag that back to a den, and this child may never be found. I hate to sit there and even think that. It's appalling to me.
I felt the same thing, that, oh my God, due to the time And due to the size of this child, being out in the heat is just tremendous. All the conditions, the indigent wildlife, the amount of time, and this poor baby may never, ever find anything. There's no chance that baby Emmanuel is still alive or sold. I believe that these monsters murdered him, and Jake has past violent propensity against his own flesh and blood with his daughter in 2018. So you got to realize who we're dealing with. These are monsters, and Jake is 32 years old. So he's been harming children, his own children, since 2018, since he was in his 20s. This guy's a piece of human garbage. I'm trying not to curse. He's a piece of shit.
Thank you for considering a membership on the Duty Ron channel. Here in the Duty Ron family, I am excited to roll out member perks in 2020. This is a new feature available to you where you will get exclusive content.
7 months old, still 7 days later, missing out of California. San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office has put out mixed signals, and we know that the mom and the father, the mother Rebecca, the father Jake, are no longer cooperating and have lawyered up. At least the father has lawyered up. The father's got a horrible past. Ed, your thoughts quickly on this case out of California.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for Emmanuel. It doesn't look good. You know, the police have reported, as you said, they had stopped cooperating, but the husband has his own lawyer and the wife has a separate lawyer. And I find that kind of odd as well. I've seen video footage from security cameras that suggest how Story has some explaining to do, because in several of the cameras that I saw on the internet, if they are to be trusted, there's no sign of this mysterious person who allegedly walked up to her and said hola and punched her out, knocked her out, and then took the baby.
Yeah, I mean, the story just doesn't jive, and it smells like our California City boys. Similar story. The parents conjured up a different story and told the local residents that the two boys just vanished out of thin air. This story stinks to high heavens. Let's go to the videotape and listen to News Nation, what they had to say here live with us tonight.
Parents say he was kidnapped last Thursday, and tonight they say they're concerned about their own safety. So what happened to Emmanuel Haro and where he is remains a mystery. His mother, Rebecca, says that around 7 p.m. exactly 1 week ago, she was changing his diaper outside her truck in the parking lot of a Big Five sporting goods store. She claims a man came up behind her, attacked her, and knocked her out. And when she came to, Emmanuel was gone. Investigators are largely focusing on Rebecca and her husband, Jake, the baby's father, after noting some inconsistencies in the mother's story. Jake also has relevant criminal history here. He was convicted of child cruelty in a case involving his 10-week-old baby in 2018. So far, police have not named any suspects, nor have they ruled out foul play. But members of the public following the story have their own suspicions.
Ed, I want to just stop it real quick for a second here, because we saw the black eye underneath the mother Rebecca's, I believe it was her right eye. She said she was knocked unconscious. You know, it takes a blow, extreme blow to the head to knock someone unconscious, but also you can get knocked unconscious from a punch to the eye. We've seen this. But that actual shiner, I'm going to go back to it, actually looks like it was from in the past. And you can't really see it good here, but we'll show it again later. You know, she mentions about the history of the father, Jake Haro, 32 years old, having a history. He assaulted his 10-week-old daughter so severe that he broke her leg, broke several ribs, fractured her skull, and gave her a brain hemorrhage. She can't even speak. 7 years old now. She has a tracheotomy. She cannot breathe on her own. He spent 6 months in jail.
She's on a feeding tube.
On a feeding tube. Why is this monster? Why was this monster able, right here, why was this monster able to father additional children after he did that to his 10-week-old daughter?
Now, that was with a different wife. But
Yeah,
you're right. He should have done more time than 10 months. I don't understand what went on with that case, that he only did 10 months.
Him and his wife at the time, Vanessa, both did 10 months. And they were on some type of program. And he was on parole. And he got locked up in 2024.
Right. For felon in possession of a firearm. Okay. So we're not dealing with a saint here. We're not dealing with a good guy. He should not have had possession of these children, and they just took away his 2-year-old in this relationship. You know, one of the relatives' cousin, I believe, has adopted 3 of this guy's children.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, it's tough to say, but some people just should not have children.
And the Bureau of Child Welfare should have known. This guy should have been on the radar for what he did. The child was brought into the emergency room. And of course, one of the required reporters, they reported to the police department and they responded and they locked both the parents up. Why in God's name? Of course, Vanessa, he was married to her. This was in 2018. They didn't get sentenced till 2023. The case didn't get resolved right away. It was going through the courts, and it's just coincidental that this attorney that we see here, Vincent Hughes, who's representing the father, Jake, he represented both him in both of his criminal proceedings. The one where he almost beat to death his little daughter, and then in the gun charge in 2024. And now he's representing him here. He's acting as a representative. It's just amazing. What are your guys' thoughts in the chat of why and how would the Bureau of Child Welfare in the state of California would allow this monster to have more children? Just doesn't make sense.
No, like I said, he shouldn't even be on the streets. He should be in jail for what he did to this child. The child is permanently handicapped because of what he did to her. Okay. And you know, it should have been attempted murder. Okay. He should have been convicted of attempted murder and he should be in.
Look at this comment by Heidi Zip. She knows. I believe she's a resident of California. She says, because it's California. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It's sick.
Now, to the black eye. Now, she gave a press conference. Did she? When exactly did she give her press conference? The day of the alleged assault?
No, the 15th. It was one day later. I have it.
Okay, one day later. All right, because you know this is how it typically works, forensically speaking, about hematomas and bruises, black eyes, things of that nature. So that injury, you know, for the first 24 hours, the injury area of the eye, it's going to be reddish and it's going to be swollen. Okay, the bruising doesn't develop until 24 to 48 hours. You know, that dark purple color that you get underneath the eye or the black discoloration, that doesn't occur until 24 to 48 hours after the blunt force impact to the eye.
Right.
Okay. And then the healing process where the bruise is going to change colors that starts, 3 to 5 days after the the injury occurred.
Right.
And I don't see any swelling.
Yeah.
I see the discoloration from the contusion. I see that,
Right.
but that suggests to me that this may be an older injury than what is reporting to be.
Absolutely. And right away, it stood out to me immediately as soon as I saw it. This is the child right here in question. Emmanuel, he doesn't, for some reason in the pictures, he doesn't seem right. Now, the mom stated that he has cross-eyed, his eyes are crossed. I would like to know what in his 7 months, his young 7 months here, what are his medical history? What is his medical records? His wellness checks with the pediatrician? I mean, of course, it's early on in this investigation. 7 days into it, I'm sure that the investigators have gone through, gone down this route where they've gone to if he was being seen by a pediatrician, what if anything was wrong with this child? Was there a history of him showing up with bruising or anything of that, things of that nature? That's what I would be looking at as well. But listen, there was DOT cameras as far as it pertains to this parking lot at the Big Five store. At the corner, just as you exited this location and you went out to the left, it was 4th Street and right, I believe it was Yucapa. I'm not sure of the street, but I think it was the name of the town, the street. There's DOT cameras, Ed, and I looked it up on Google Earth. There's DOT cameras looking in every direction. So a lot of her story, they're going to look and go to we know that they went to the jewelry store next door and they got the cameras from there. There was a store that was right next to this sporting goods place that sold women's apparel, I believe, or clothing of some sort. They got cameras from there. They got cameras from across the street at a liquor store. So there's numerous cameras that they're going to have to try to corroborate her story. And right away, when she was being questioned, they told her story was not jiving. And that's when she said, I want a lawyer. I don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah.
So very interesting. I'm going to let the rest of this play. I know you got a lot of things going on. Ed's down by the Jersey Shore, so the water is rising. So if you have to check, I'm going to go full screen. We're going to play a little bit more of this.
Okay.
Here's Elizabeth Vargas and also our good friend Bobby Chacon. I didn't listen to this, so I want to hear what they have to say.
After strangers came onto their property, stole things from their porch. Jake also has relevant criminal history here. He was convicted of child cruelty in a case involving his 10-week-old baby in 2018. So far, police have not named any suspects, nor have they ruled out foul play. But members of the public following the story have their own suspicions. The parents say they are now facing threats. They even say they called 911 last night after strangers came onto their property, stole things from their porch, and banged on their door. Joining us now.
Tony, let me just clarify what I'm saying. This is a case in California. I'm well aware that there is a problem across the United States as it pertains to this. But this is more than a handful of times that we've covered cases where it involves parents that have a history of assaults on their children. And then in a short period of time, they have all of a sudden now are having more children. There needs to be a checks and balances here. And our little ones, 7-month-old baby, can't speak for themselves. And Tony, I present this to you. It's obviously not a California problem, but I'm talking about a California case. So, I mean, you might have misunderstood what I was saying, but this is a well-documented problem from the East Coast to the West Coast. But this case that we're talking about here tonight happened in California. It's a California problem, this case.
Is News Nation senior investigative producer Allison Weiner. She's been on the scene speaking with sources on the ground. Also joining us is former FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. Allison, I want to start with you. You've been in close contact with Jake and Rebecca Haro and the lawyer who's representing Jake. What kinds of threats is this couple getting?
Well, it's a bit of a circus outside of the house. I was actually in Cabazon, and the pictures that we just showed of the, memorial or the signs up are right outside of the house. Cabazon is an area of California in the middle of the desert that is about 30 minutes from Palm Springs. It's about 108 outside there. And I was standing outside there. There's a lot of media there, but there's also a lot of TikTokers and all kinds of pseudo interested people who are milling about. And I assume that also includes, some unsavory types. I don't assume it. I saw some unsavory types. It's also, these people are walking onto the lawn. They're walking up to the house. They're banging on the door. I saw some of that behavior. So basically, this case has generated a lot of emotion. People are very.
And why did they call 911, Allison?
Well, there was a man that went up to the house. He banged on the door repeatedly. He stole something off of the porch, and then he made some joke about how, he had done the 5 fingers.
I got to say, look, I mean, this is from tonight. I didn't get a chance to review this. So they're talking about the mother and father at their home being victims of people trespassing on their property. I don't condone this. I say it time and time again. You want to sit outside at the perimeter of the property, and you want to, leave signs or here, where's the baby, justice for Emmanuel. I'm okay with that. But when you go and you come into the property, that makes you a criminal. And I do not condone that kind of behavior. And I don't think any of us should. It's not a good look. It's not a good thing. And it never really gets anywhere. And we see this a lot, Ed. We see this in a lot of the cases where people will go and trespass onto property. I don't care how badly you feel about this family. We have to let the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department do their job, do the investigation, and if they need to be charged, charge them.
Yeah, no vigilantism, none of that, please. And if you're going to go search for this child, please, do it in with an organized group that, get training, know what you're doing. Don't be freelancing and any of this stuff, because I recently saw a video, and I'm not going to mention any names, in another case of a missing child. It turns out that the mother killed the kid after, but initially reported missing. And then someone's found what appeared to be possible evidence and started touching things with bare hands and altering the crime scene and potentially putting their fingerprints and DNA all over the possible evidence.
Yeah, it's not a good thing to do. So I want to fast forward this because obviously they're talking about parents being harassed and so forth. Ed, the mom was asked to take a polygraph. She declined it. Our good friend Timmy Acosta is in the chat. He's a polygraph expert. We know that they're not admissible in court, but if you are a parent that are reporting that your child was abducted by somebody in a parking lot and you were hit over the head and knocked unconscious, wouldn't you be just like, yeah, I got nothing to hide. Give me a polygraph. I'll pass that shit with flying colors. She refused to take it. Those are some red flags that stick out. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know that, defense attorneys would tell you not to take it, but if you were, and it's easy for me not having walked in those shoes, to say, listen, if I know myself, I'm just going to talk for myself. If I knew I was not guilty, and I'd have no problem doing the polygraph.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let us know what you think in the chat. Again, like I said, I feel strongly that, the mom would, the mom and dad should be like, hey, whatever we need to do to help to find our sons. But because her story and this whole thing is falling apart, look, we've seen this before in other cases where the parents are like, please just bring home, or, and we know the end results there. I don't see anything good happening here in this case. This is 7 days later. This is a 7-month-old child. And I don't really feel that anybody there's no upside to somebody coming, knocking her over the head and taking the kid away. The whole story just doesn't make any sense. I wanted to go to Vinnie Politan, and he had a reporter outside the house, and the mother and father, Rebecca and father Jake, came home, and the reporter was outside the house and asked them some questions. Let's see what they said. I don't think they really answered much, but they came home with grandma, and I want to just play this real quick for you guys.
Emmanuel, a 7-month-old whose mother claims he was abducted in public. A strange story that has now resulted in investigators looking at the parents. Here's the story.
Little baby Emmanuel Haro is just 7 months old. His mom, Rebecca, says she went to the sporting goods store and was in the parking lot trying to change his diaper when she was attacked and knocked out cold. When she came to, baby Emmanuel was nowhere to be found. How could a child abduction take place in such a public place? But yet, no one saw anything, not one witness, not one video. Now, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department is investigating, and the focus of their investigation seems to have shifted to Emmanuel's parents, Jake and Rebecca, who now have a criminal defense lawyer representing them. Where is baby Emmanuel, and who is responsible for the disappearance of this precious little boy?
You know, watching this story as it's developed has reminded me of many other stories that we've covered and the dynamics. There was a case out in California, the Cal City toddlers. Very similar to that.
Is exactly what I just mentioned about the California City boys. Orrin and Orson West, Sincere and Classic. We'll never forget them. Their remains have never been found, but their parents were found guilty of murder in the second degree, a no-body homicide case involving 2 young boys. And that's what Vinny's alluding to here. In California City is, bless you, Ed, not in this general location, but is not too far from this. So yeah, these are, this is just strikingly similar with a made-up, ridiculous story. And that's what we see here. The story does not make sense.
In the way we first learned about the story and we learned about the disappearance of the child. In that case, it was the mother and father came out and were telling their story and answering questions. Well, the same thing happened in this case. Baby Emmanuel, gone, mom and dad standing out there, and I don't think they necessarily spent a lot of time in front of cameras and microphones and the media and the public, et cetera, but telling their story and answering some questions. So let's begin there. Let's take a look at baby Emmanuel's mom and dad.
We come to you guys asking you to help us find our son. He was abducted last night from Big 5. Somebody struck my wife while she was trying to change his diaper. And we just ask if anybody knows anything to please contact Yucaipa Police Department.
Don't hesitate, just call.
His name's Emmanuel. He's 7 months. He's 7 months old.
Have you been notified of any information yet by local authorities? No, we have not. They haven't told us nothing.
They said they don't have any major updates.
Do you guys plan on doing a local search of your own? We are. Yeah, we have 4 o'clock here at Yucaipa.
The community set up a search party at 4:30. So we're ready to just ask you guys if you can help us.
Please.
This is what he looks like.
And I want to say something, Ed. The people of the community in the Yucaipa area were gung-ho with helping them. And what you see in the background, this is August 15th, it says it right up here on the right-hand side, is all community folks that came out. There was even a contingent from, I believe it was the Uvalde Foundation. They were willing to come out there and help them, even put up a $5,000 reward. And they quickly withdrew once they received information from the police that there was inconsistencies in the mom's story. So again, the people of Yucaipa, they came out and they want to find baby Emmanuel. and they were ready to help. But this is the last time these parents were seen in public. These are the last time mom and dad were together requesting whoever allegedly took their son to return them. And the story, as we said, is just, it stinks to high heavens. It's hogwash. So that's where we're at here. And Ed, I wanted to go with you after we play the rest of this to talk about the dumpster, which is not a far distance from the home, which from the Yucaipa location where she went to the sporting goods store back to their home is just 26 miles. So this dumpster was a short distance in between the home and here. I think it was closer to their family home. And they took items out of that dumpster and they searched the backyard of the home. And their home is in a rural, very, mountainous area. It actually looked like it was kind of flat. And I will show an overview of that. They had cadaver dogs go out to the home. They were inside there. They took probably their tech, which we understand the cell phones and so forth, were given over to the detectives. They got they got warrants for them, which is obviously the right thing to do. Ed, you and I know, you don't go with people like this by saying, oh, yeah, you could take our phones. It's okay. Here's our passwords. I'll sign anything. You know that doesn't work out once they get locked up. So they did it the right way, and I think that was a good thing. Let's listen to the rest of this, and then we'll talk about a little bit about polygraphs because Timmy Acosta is going to join us in a few.
It's just a baby. Just give our son back, please.
He was wearing a black onesie with a Nike swoosh on him. If you know anything, please come forward, please. Please bring us back our son. We're safe.
So that was the day after, right? So baby is reported missing, reported abducted the night before, and that's the following day, August 15th. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation, which is, what are baby Emmanuel's parents saying now? Now we're a few days into this. The investigation has begun. What are his parents saying now? Here to help answer that question, Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who is live outside the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, and freelance journalist Brandy Carlos, who's been on the scene and covering this story since the beginning. Thank you both. Matt, let me begin with you. What are they saying now? I understand you went to their house today.
Not saying much, Vinny, and that is quite the contrast from 6 days ago when this incident first took place, according to the mother, over at that Big Five Sporting Goods, when the 7-month-old baby Emmanuel, was ripped from her arms and she was beaten unconscious, according to her. Well, sheriff's deputies here at the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office here behind me, I have been in touch with them all day. They are pleading, asking for this family to come back to the table. They have since lawyered up and not answering their questions and not answering our questions. I want to show you what happened at their house earlier. This is the rural community of Cabazon. So we're located just off of the 10 freeway where the family has lived for several years. Right behind the home is the 10 freeway that links Los Angeles to Palm Springs. This home and the property has recently been searched by authorities. The family has lawyered up, no longer cooperating with police. What was that? How are you guys doing? Can you please answer any questions for us? Can you please answer any questions? Do you guys have any information about the baby?
Okay, so I just want to set this up for you guys. Sarah, thank you so much for the super chat. Very generous. Yeah, it says a lot that there's no tears coming out of either parent. The two parents just got out, Rebecca and Jake, and this is Rebecca's mom. I have a video of Rebecca's mom the day after as well at the parking lot of the Big Lot 5 store. And she made some statements that are interesting, but let's listen. Matt Johnson is yelling things to the father right here, to Jake, and he's holding something, it looks like whatever, a plastic bag, and he says something back to him.
Have police updated you guys at all? On the investigation? Can I get his information, please?
Why don't you talk to my lawyer? I mean, is that a concerned father? You have a legitimate reporter outside your house that wants to ask you some questions, even from a distance. He could have said, the police haven't or have updated us. He just totally ignored him and walked away. People in the chat are saying the dad is guilty as fuck. Yeah, I mean, he's not, both parents are not giving any indication that they want to cooperate, and that speaks volumes. Ed, I wanted to go to you quickly. How's everything going? I just saw you went and looked. Is the water coming up closer?
It hasn't gotten onto my top patio yet, but the lower patio is totally covered with water.
Ed, let's talk about well, I'm praying that it doesn't go any further, that's for sure. Let's talk, as we have you here, a little bit about the forensics. They searched the inside of the home. It's alleged that they tore up a carpet or took pieces of a carpet, but there was a dumpster that was searched, and I'm going to pull it up as you talk. Forensically, what do they take? They take the whole contents of the dumpster? Do they take little pieces of it? Do they take everything? Your thoughts, Ed?
Well, first of all, the dumpster was deposited on a dirt area, and next to it was a paved parking location. In addition, there were some residents and nearby that one of the houses had a surveillance camera. So I'm praying maybe they have some footage of who went to this dumpster. Now, that dumpster area, all that ground should have been searched. Footwear impressions, tire impressions, because you can actually see a tire impression in that soil. In the beginning, the footage had a nice tire impression. But that whole area needed to be searched. Yeah, there you go. And for me, I would have preferred to have flatbedded that dumpster to a secure forensic garage and then work the dumpster in the garage as opposed to work it there. The outside of the dumpster has to be processed for DNA and fingerprints, hairs and fibers. Also the lids, same thing. Then you have to look at the contents. So basically you have to set up a clean work surface, and you have to document it like an excavation. And then, you slowly remove things, label them, and put them on their own clean examination tarp, and then separate everything so that there's no commingling. It's already commingled in the dumpster. There's nothing you can do about that before you get there. But once you get there, you can stop the commingling and separate it and go through all this stuff. I understand they found some children's clothing and some other stuff that may be of interest in this case. And now they're going to look at that. If they're going to package that clothing up correctly in paper bags for DNA and run it to the DNA lab to see if they can extract DNA from that. We're going to look for hairs and fibers as well. You can get the parents' hairs and fibers, the child's hairs and fibers, and so forth. And then you can get your DNA, and if they match it back, then they'll have to explain this. How did this get here? And then hopefully there's going to be a lot of digital forensics here. There's going to be a lot of cell phone dumps. Celebrite is going to be used on all these phones. You're going to get the infotainment system on the vehicle. You're going to get GPS information. There's going to be a lot of data that has to be looked at. And then there's going to be traffic cams and other camera information. So their movements are going to be tracked, from days before the incident, incident being the day it was reported, from days before they reported the child missing in the alleged assault, and what they did afterwards. So everything is going to be run down to ground, and I'm sure this is going to develop into a solid case.
And they're going to do victimology. They're going to go back to see, when was the last sighting of this child, Emmanuel, Well, when was the last time he was seen alive? Because it said, and I don't know if this is 100% confirmed, but it was said that nobody at that football game even saw the kid.
Yeah, they're going to look at all of that. They're going to track down the people that were at the football stadium and ask to see their phones and any photographs taken, anything that can document her presence there and the child. Okay.
Right.
So, like I said, all those movements are going to be run down.
Now, search warrants conducted at the home, out at the home, and they, in addition to those search warrants, they came out with the dogs. You and I both know, and Tim Acosta is going to join us in a minute. When they bring out cadaver dogs, they're looking for scents of human remains. They're not using a bloodhound. They weren't using a dog to search to see if the kid was somewhere and it was unable to be, unable to move or something like that. This is a 7-month-old child. They brought those dogs in there to essentially rule out any human remains on that property. And there was no digging. I didn't see any indication of any digging or excavating. They wouldn't just do it randomly to excavate the property. They'd have to have some cause to do that. So, but they spent a great deal of time out at that house over the weekend, allegedly cutting out a carpet. Now, they didn't confirm that, the police, but this is what's been talked about out there. Why would they cut out the carpet, Ed?
I don't know. Maybe they found some signs of blood on the carpet. Maybe there was vomit or some other bodily fluids that could have been on the carpet, and so they wanted to bring it back to the lab for further analysis. They could have performed some presumptive tests out there and gotten some hits on the presumptive test. Now they want to do confirmation.
Yes, and I read also too that they went out to a Lamb Canyon landfill, which is the landfill of where that dumpster and the garbage was removed to. So I don't know how much they did there, but this was from a Los Angeles news outlet, and I read that. I want to talk about polygraphs. For those of you in the chat, how many of you guys are interested in this? We have a polygraph expert who's a great friend, retired NYPD first grade detective. He's the reason Ed Wallace is on this show, and he hates when I do that. Costa joining us. I'm not sure where he is, but he was generous enough to, on a moment's notice, come in and give us a little bit of a talk about polygraphs. The mom, as we know, and dad refused to take a polygraph. Tim, thanks for joining. How are you, brother?
Excellent. How you doing, Ron? Hey, Ed.
Hey, Tim.
How you doing, brother?
All right. Dodging hurricanes and flooding.
Yeah, stay dry.
Yeah. So, Tim, talk to us a little bit about your experience as it pertains to polygraphs. I know it's something that you do. You're retired from our job, but what brought you into the polygraph field, and what's your thoughts on this mom refusing to take a polygraph after she told police that she was hit over the head, knocked unconscious, and someone abducted her son?
Right. So I went to polygraph school back in 2009. Since then, I've done literally thousands of polygraphs. The majority of the polygraphs that I conduct now are criminal defense polygraphs, trying to help people prove them that they're innocent of whatever they're being accused of. It's not unusual for somebody who's represented by an attorney to decline taking a polygraph. Doesn't mean that they're not going to take one. The attorney may hire somebody like me to do a polygraph to see how they do. And then what happens is if they fail, they never tell anybody that they took a polygraph. That's done quite frequently. I've done probably 3 with the same circumstances over the past month that fit that category. It is used in a lot of cases where somebody, they come forward and they say, hey, I had nothing to do with this crime. And in this case, I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my child. I want to prove myself innocent. I want to show the world that I had nothing to do with this. Help me find my kid. Help me find my kid. That they would submit to a polygraph. But again, since I believe the male individual has got prior contacts with law enforcement. So I might be a reason why he's, lawyered up.
Yeah, and he's on parole. So that's the thing, Timmy. Him and his former wife, the mother of his daughter, who he assaulted to the point where she was hospitalized. She had broken ribs. She had a skull fracture. She also had a brain hemorrhage, and she's got 3% of her brain functioning. This guy was a brutal monster. He's a evil, sick son of a bitch. And
all red flags, Ron.
Yeah,
all red flags to law enforcement, where they're gonna quickly bring these people into view and start looking at them. All red flags.
Received a slap on the wrist and only served 6 months, along with his wife at the time, who's not the woman that he's with now, that he's married to now. They served 6 months and then got out on parole. He's on parole, and he in 2024, just a year ago, got collared with a gun. So he was a parolee with a gun. So this is concerning. And at the
No
end,
stranger to law enforcement.
oh, 100%, 100%. This guy's a bad seed, and there's no reason why he should be. Again, I feel like this is very strongly that he shouldn't have any kids. So. It is what it is. We're in a situation here where there's so many unanswered questions. But as it pertains to polygraphs, people always say, "Oh, polygraphs suck. They're not accurate. They don't tell the story." How accurate are these things? I know it's a matter of who's giving it, right? It's a lot to do with the examiner, correct?
It is a lot. It has a lot to do with the examiner. I have 2 cases right now, one of which I have a court order which will allow me to bring my polygraph equipment into Rikers Island and conduct a polygraph. I'm probably going to get that done over the next week or so. I have another one that I'm waiting for the judge to authorize it. I try to explain to people all the time. They'll ask me, well, how accurate it is, how accurate is the polygraph? Why isn't allowed in court? Is it allowed in court? The standard answer is that it's not allowed in court. That's the standard answer. But I've testified in court regarding polygraph. I know other cases which have been allowed in federal court regarding polygraphs. Right. So it's really up to the judge whether or not the judge will allow it. Most of the time, the prosecutor or the district attorney's office will look at it. They're going to look at the examiner to see what their qualifications are, to make sure that they're legitimate and they have an expertise in polygraph. They're going to take that. They're going to look at the entire polygraph process. Everything gets wrapped up. All my charts, audio, video, everything gets sent to the district attorney's office or the prosecutor. They will do a quality control of it. They'll have a legitimate polygraph examiner take a look at it to make sure things were done correctly, to make sure that the question formulation was correct. All of the proper protocols were followed. Once that's done, a lot of times in cases that I've been involved in, several have been robbery cases where the police just happened to grab the wrong kid.
Right.
And they were identified by the victim. The victim mis-ID'd these individuals, and they just happened to say it was them, and it wasn't. In 2 separate cases that I did in Queens, both robbery cases, both of these cases, the district attorney's office deferred prosecution
because of the polygraph.
They looked at the polygraph. Now, don't get me wrong. They kind of knew something didn't smell right with the case.
Right.
And it was a case. Both of these cases were, victim identification cases.
Right.
So
right.
with victim identification cases, they can be off sometimes. And in these cases, it didn't smell right to the DA, so the DA used the polygraph and deferred prosecution on both of these cases.
Let me ask you something, Tim, as it pertains to the mother, Rebecca. If they were to administer a polygraph in a situation where they wanted to just see if her story was legit, like, hey, to ascertain if this story was a conjured up story or if this kid was missing for days in the past, because as we know in these cases, the families, a lot of these times they make up a story. So we saw it with the California City Boys. They were murdered some 3 or 4. I think they reported them around Christmas time, and the murders, the alleged murders, and they were convicted of the murders without the bodies being recovered, happened in September. So, like, we don't know if this story was just like the day that they both decided, hey, let's tell the story. We can't go with this farce anymore. I think it's just important that people understand is that sometimes police in these preliminary investigations want to put somebody under a polygraph just to actually corner them and say, hey, you failed the polygraph when we asked you if this incident actually happened and that your son was abducted on this day in question. It just didn't even get to that point,
Yeah.
Had any thoughts on it?
Yeah. Well, we know time doesn't matter with the polygraph, right? So it doesn't matter how much time has passed. I did a polygraph on a homicide case that was over 30 years old. I went up to a state facility, did the polygraph. The individual failed. So time is not going to make a difference. Law enforcement, and it's done all of the time. Local jurisdictions do it. Federal agencies do it. FBI does it. They will, bring a victim in or complainant in just to verify the story. Hey, we just want to make sure everything's, on the up and up, and what you're saying is true. And we just want to verify.
Yeah.
And they have a way of talking people into doing it. And it's pretty smooth. But once they lawyer up, that's it.
It's a wrap.
The lawyer's going to say no. It's like 99% of the time the lawyer's going to say no. I've had lawyers call me up and say, hey, they want to do a polygraph. I want you to do one first. Okay? Because the lawyer wants to know if his client is guilty or not. Yeah. So I've done a polygraph, and, lo and behold, the individual passed the polygraph, and then they went to the police department and they did a polygraph, and they passed my polygraph. They're passing the police department's polygraph. So, law enforcement, they do use polygraph as a tool. It's used as a tool all of the time to help them with these cases to verify the information. Now, keep in mind in this case, right, it is possible that she had nothing to do with the crime or the disappearance.
And he did.
And he did.
And was using her and her story to present it to the media. Oh, look, she's the victim. She got beat up, when in fact he probably beat the shit out of her and killed, God forbid, killed his son.
Yeah.
Again, nobody knows at this point.
Don't know.
But, we've been in this business long enough, and I just want to play this quick video right here. This is going to tell you how bad of a person the father, Jake, is. Let's listen to this.
Baby who was reported missing in Yucaipa last week. Investigators have seized his father's car, and now our team has uncovered some new details about his criminal past. NBC4's Amber Frias live from Yucaipa with what we found in court documents. Amber.
Hey, Colleen, I was able to get the arrest warrant filed for Jake Haro in a child cruelty case from 7 years ago. The case involves a 10-month-old baby girl. It names Jake Haro and his then wife. It also details the severe injuries this little girl suffered under their care.
This morning, no one is answering the door at the family home of missing 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro. The San Bernardino Sheriff's Department says Emmanuel's parents have stopped cooperating with investigators.
Hopefully we can find him soon. And it's just very heartbreaking.
Outside the home, community members continue stopping by, showing support for the search.
Well, for one, it's incredibly sad. I'm a mother and I have a small child of my own, so it hits home.
It's been nearly a week since Emmanuel's mother, Rebecca Haro, reported he was kidnapped after she was attacked outside a Big Five store in Yucaipa. This morning, the Sheriff's Department said they received reports of a possible sighting of Emmanuel in Kern County, but that he has not been found. On Tuesday, the department seized Emmanuel's father, Jake Haro's car. We have not been able to get in touch with the family since the day after Emmanuel was.
And I want to ask you, for our listening audience, the knowledge, the seizure of the car. I'm assuming that the parents shared a vehicle and didn't have two, because they would say, you would say to yourself, well, wouldn't they want her car and his? So maybe they shared a vehicle. What was the purpose of them taking that car as as it pertains to your CSI expert?
Well, from what I heard from his lawyer, they only had one car. They got a warrant. They took his car. So that's part of why his lawyer is saying that, they can't participate in any of the searches for their child because they have no vehicle to get around now. Yeah, I'm not buying that. But yeah, to your question, the car is important because you want to see if there's any blood in the car, any signs of decomposition in the car, any, hairs and fibers. You'd expect the hairs and fibers and the DNA to be there, but you shouldn't expect pools of blood or anything like that in the vehicle, the trunk, or whatever the case may be, the cargo area. You shouldn't expect to see stuff like that in the car. Maybe a drop or two, but nothing in quantity. Right. So they're going to tear that car apart and put it underneath a microscope if as they should, and see what's in there. Right away I start thinking back to was it Kaylee Anthony, and the car and how the importance of the car here. Because she's saying she transported this child in this car from the football practice, to the sports store where she was attacked, but yet nobody can vouch for seeing the child.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's alleged that the videos that were obtained, and this is from people from TikTok and going around to the store owners, that in the videos that were provided to law enforcement, that there's nobody seen running away from her car with her child.
Also, the dumpster. You want to
need a UGC video for your business? Find me and many others.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for being here. My name's Gavin. This is my program. On this program, we like to cut through the fluff of true crime, all the sensationalism, get down. The baby was gone. And of course, we watched some videos yesterday that were so frustrating. I might bring them up again. Yeah, you guys are going to have to bear with me as I bring these up, because it's just the tearless, described as tearful plea to the assailant is something to behold. But it's not really what we're talking about today. In Emmanuel's case, his parents, Jake and Rebecca, were to have their arraignment today. In fact, they did allow some cameras in the courtroom, though, again, I'm so frustrated we didn't get to see much that happened in the courtroom from the news outlets, probably because not much happened in the courtroom today. But one thing that was important that did happen was charges were filed. They're officially charged with the murder of 7-month-old, their baby Emmanuel. This is a photo, by the way, that people think, some people think, including apparently one ME, that the child might be passed away already in this photo. I don't see it, but anyway. Let's get into, where should we start? Let's start with the local news, shall we? Let me get to the right place on my screen. Yeah, let's begin there. Oh, this is Court TV.
We've hit the pause button on this testimony to bring you some breaking news out of California. The parents of a missing baby, Emmanuel, who's been the subject of a nationwide search, has just been charged with his murder. Both of those parents have. The police arrested Jake and Rebecca Haro in their Southern California home on Friday. But it wasn't until today that charges were filed against the couple, including that murder charge. The search for the 7-month-old's body is still ongoing. Court TV's Matt Johnson is in in California on the ground for us. He will bring us updates on what is happening there later today. We'll, of course, bring you the updates both here and online.
Now, I haven't seen these updates. I haven't seen the updates, which, I mean, I hope they bring them to us because I really would like Court TV to give us a report. Let's go to local LA. I think this is NBC 4. Here we go.
We begin with that breaking news in the Inland Empire, a major break in the case of a 7-month-old missing for more than a week now. The parents of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro have now been charged for his murder. The baby boy disappeared August 14th, and investigators are still searching for him. NBC4's Christian Cáceres is live in Riverside, where his parents made their first court appearance today. Christian.
Annabelle, good afternoon to you. And that's right, as you mentioned, Jake and Rebecca Haro were charged with murder and also for filing a fake police report. But as you mentioned, they made their first court appearance today. Take a look.
So for Mr. Haro, the court will...
Well, the parent...
That is the grand total of what we need to take a look at. That is it. Like, hey, take a look. They were in court. Here they are.
Of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro were supposed to be arraigned today inside a Riverside courtroom, but the judge pushed the case to next month because the couple's public defender said they had limited information, meaning no police report and only the complaint, which was actually filed today. Now, it's been 12 days since the couple reported their missing son from the shopping center in Yucaipa. That's when the boy's mother, Rebecca, said she was attacked from behind while changing his diaper in the parking lot. When she regained consciousness, she says her son was gone. For several days, sheriff investigators searched for the boy, but an Amber Alert was never issued. Investigators said the parents' story started becoming inconsistent. And last Friday, both Jake and Rebecca were arrested at their Cabazon home as the whereabouts of their son remain unknown. Today, several families came together outside the courthouse in support for the missing boy.
It seems like he didn't have a lot of love in his life, and so I just felt like it was important to come out here and just show him, you know, that people do care.
And according to
by the way, I watched about an hour and a half of a live stream on Pascal's channel, the Pascal Show. Pascal Show? I don't know how you pronounce it. I should know that. But I watched about an hour and a half of it, and he was showing some TikTok lives and things like that from people outside the courthouse. Indeed, there were people out there just, you know, waiting for news about what was going on. A lot of people talking to locals and speculating about certain things. I'm not totally comfortable doing that, not because it's wrong. It's because I don't know what it is they're going to say if I'm watching somebody else's live, right? And I've got a little issue with that. But there was one man, I'm blanking on his name. He's been on Court TV. He's been on News Nation. He's a local, he has a YouTube channel, a local guy. When Rebecca and Jake came into the courtroom, he actually yelled out, "Hola." And he actually got sanctioned for it. He apologized for it. I think he was taken out of the courtroom. He could have been facing some contempt charges, but got out of those. Anyway, yeah, tempers and emotions are high for very good reason. We've got a 7-month-old little boy that is missing, presumed dead. Anyway.
Documents obtained by NBC4 investigates Jake was convicted in 2021 for cruelty to a child and in 2024 for being a felon in possession of a handgun. And Annabelle, I have to mention that Jake and Rebecca Haro's case, again, has been pushed to next month. And hopefully the public defender says they will have a private attorney. But again, they're hoping.
Okay, now I want to talk about that. Just a little bit, okay? And we're going to get into the documents, but that's not perfectly reported. And of course, he's doing his best. What's his name, Christian?
All of this.
He is doing his best to tell a story in a minimal amount of time. So my hat's off to him for writing and reporting a good story. However, it's not perfectly correct. This is what is going on. The public defender is saying that they cannot defend both parties. They need separate counsel. And so the public defender's office is going to defend one of them, either Jake or Rebecca Haro. And then on the taxpayer's dime, they are going to get a private attorney to represent the other party. So they just, I guess there's a conflict. And I think that is I mean, it's a second indication that we've got a bifurcation happening between these two parties, between Jake and Rebecca, right? Rebecca, we read an article yesterday, was sitting in jail saying, like, sticking to her story. The man came out of nowhere. He hit me in the face. He knocked me out. He took my child. I will not rest until I find the assailant of my child, the perpetrator who took my child. Meanwhile, Jake is out with sheriff's deputies out there in San Bernardino County, or Riverside. I can't remember exactly where, Moreno Valley, something like that, helping them look ostensibly for a body. That's what the sheriff's office said. So there is a bifurcation here. Therefore, we need, I think they would have needed it anyway, but they definitely need two different attorneys to represent these folks.
Comes together within the next couple of days, but we're also learning.
Let me go back real quick because I kind of spoke over him. I'm just going to go back a few minutes. Sorry, one more thing that I keep noticing. When we look at the video of Jake Haro in court, he looks perfectly comfortable. Rebecca, not so much, right? I mean, look, here's Jake Haro in court, handcuffed in his little red jumpsuit. He has been here before. She has not. She is uncomfortable. She does not want her picture taken. She is not prepared for this, right? All right, let's continue. I will do my best not to interrupt.
And hopefully the public defender says they will have a private attorney. But again, they're hoping that all of this information comes together within the next couple of days. But we're also learning that tomorrow, the Riverside County District Attorney's Office, they plan on releasing more information about this case. They're holding a press conference tomorrow morning where we know the San Bernardino and the Riverside County Sheriff's Departments, they're both going to be there. So stay tuned to that. That's the very latest from Riverside. Christian Casares, NBC4 News.
All right, Christian did a pretty darn good job there. Now, so tomorrow there's going to be a press conference, as Christian just said, and I think that's at about 1 p.m. Eastern time, which is my time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cover it live, but we'll probably cover it tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Now, one other thing that came out in this report. This was to be their arraignment, but the public defender's office are like, we cannot represent these clients. We have just gotten the criminal complaint this very day. Therefore, we move to continue the arraignment until September 4th, and that is what happened. It was scheduled for September 4th. I do not believe that equals a waiver of their right to a speedy trial. I think that probably was just the next time that arraignment court was scheduled, or that there was a space available in arraignment court. So they're moving that arraignment to September 4th. Okay. Now, the last video that we are going to take a look at is this one before we get into some documents. Okay. So let me bring up this one. This is from KTLA 5. They're reporting on the same events. It's slightly different. Here we go.
Now at noon, breaking news. Murder charges have been filed against the parents of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro.
Thanks for joining us for the KTLA 5 News at noon. I'm Lou Parker.
And I'm Lauren Lister in for Glenn Walker. It has been nearly 2 weeks since baby Emmanuel was reported missing after what officials call a bogus kidnapping in the Inland Empire.
And today, his parents are expected to appear in court to face murder charges. KTLA 5's Jean Kang live at the courthouse in Riverside with an update. Jean.
Hi, good afternoon, Lauren and Lou, to both of you. Well, I've been in close contact with the DA's office, and they just filed those charges formally against Emmanuel Haro, that baby's parents. Well, both of them are now in jail. They're being held on $1 million bail each, so $2 million total. We know that arraignment is going forward at 1:30 this afternoon. That's going to be here at the Riverside Hall of Justice. Take a look at this, though. If you haven't seen this, both of them were arrested on Friday, as you see in this video.
We have seen
the parents
this.
of Emmanuel Haro, that 7-month-old baby, they were arrested at their Cabazon home. Court documents filed today reveal prosecutors believe the baby was murdered between August 5th and the 14th. That's new information. Up to 9 days before Rebecca claimed her baby was kidnapped.
And remember, I think it was August 12th that Rebecca went to the Big Five Sporting Goods to see if there were any cameras. That's what it looks like. They were casing Big Five to see if there were any cameras.
A Big Five store parking lot in Yucaipa. The couple is also charged with filing a false police report on August 14th. That's the same day they reported the alleged kidnapping of their baby. The mother made an emotional public plea at the time for his return, even doing TV interviews. Baby Emmanuel supporters today, here by the Hall of Justice, demand justice for that child.
I wanted to come out here and just show support for the baby because I feel like he doesn't have a voice right now. So, you know, it seems like he didn't have a lot of love in his life. And so I just felt like it was important to come out here and just show him, you know, that people do care.
You know,
and there's this in a recent.
It's like the news organizations only had one person that they could interview, because we saw that the woman on the street thing or the man on the street thing. I don't like all that much. But anyway, one thing that I will say that I think is super important here, guys, and Pascal brought it up earlier today as well, that I thought was TWR blah 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 terrific, right? The reason, how do I put this? Because I don't want to put down our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, because I think they do a terrific job by and large. However, I do think that the amount of attention that has come to this story, not only from the local news, but from TikTokers, YouTubers, you know, people that are local, people that are maybe for the first time activists about a case like this, that are just so distraught and so upset that a 7-month-old child could be the victim of murder at the hands of his parents. I think that the fact that we've got so many people covering this, we've got so many people showing up, I think that is putting pressure on law enforcement to cross their T's and dot their lowercase J's. I think I think that this kind of pressure is important. And this goes back, for me anyway, all the way back to Gabby Petito, where her parents masterfully involved new media and social media in the attempt to find their daughter alive. And ultimately, the ability of law enforcement to find their daughter's remains, because I think it was only because of people coming forward, talking on platforms like TikTok and YouTube, that Gabby Petito was found as soon as she was. So I think we keep doing this. I just think we keep doing this, no matter what kind of pressure we get from the establishment. I think we keep doing it because I think law enforcement does need that pressure. Not because I don't think they're professionals, not because I don't think they can't do their job. I think, though, the pressure helps them do it better.
Jailhouse interview, Rebecca maintained her innocence, saying, quote, "I will not give up on my baby," adding that she wished that she was out there searching for him. Reports say she visited the same Big Five store just days before the reported alleged kidnapping of baby Emmanuel, asking about surveillance cameras after claiming her car was burglarized. On Sunday, Jake was spotted in a jail jumpsuit during a massive search in the Badlands area near Moreno Valley. More than a dozen sheriff's vehicles and cadaver dogs searched that location for hours. Jake was not part of the search officially, but he was at that site. Unfortunately, detectives found nothing. The case has drawn national attention, as we know. Court records show Jake pleaded guilty to child cruelty. That was back in 2018. Prosecutors also plan to introduce evidence of prior domestic violence incidents. Deputies responded to a new child abuse call recently involving the Haros just last Thursday. Now back out here live, of course, we are going to
That
be
rem-
there in the court.
That reminds me, the next article we read before we get to the documents is going to be from the New York Post. I want to read that.
Room here in Riverside County at 1:30 for that arraignment. We have also requested that cameras be allowed to record in the courtroom, but that is up to a judge. We're waiting on all of that as the documents are now in court. Reporting live here in Riverside, Gene Kang, KTLA 5 News.
Okay, so yeah, that there was a little bit new there. Okay, let's run over to Acrobat. Bring you guys over here. Before we get to this, I want to read a couple of articles. Maybe this one. Okay, this is out of the New York Post, okay? They're a little late to the party sometimes, and I also kind of think this was written maybe by AI, but what do I know? Okay, Jared Downing. The California couple suspected of murdering their 7-month-old son, Emmanuel Haro, were officially charged in his death today, after being linked to a child abuse report called in on the day he vanished. Jake and Rebecca Haro face a murder rap and a charge of filing a false police report. I'm going to look at those documents shortly, after they told cops their baby was abducted by a mysterious fisticuffs-throwing stranger outside a sporting goods store in San Bernardino on August 14th. Authorities have cited inconsistencies in Rebecca's story that led them to suspect the parents, but offered no further details, including why they believe Emmanuel is dead. His body is yet to be found, but Riverside County Sheriff's revealed that they responded to a report of suspected CA near the sporting goods store on the same day Emmanuel vanished, and that the Haros are linked to the probe. Okay, that's number one. We're going to take a look at a document that we looked at yesterday, but let me keep going. So they responded to a report of suspected CA near the sporting goods store on the same day Emmanuel vanished. By the way, the Haros, let me open up a new tab here real quick. Let's go to maps. Cleared my cache earlier today, and now I have to type in everything. Give me just 1 second while I search this. It's 50008 Ramona Street in Cabazon. Let me do Big 5 Sporting Goods. No, that's not going to do. Okay. Anyway, let me bring you over here real quick. I'm just looking at a map here. This is the house that they were arrested at. This is the house that they lived at. When we look at this, you'll notice in the background, this is the house in the background of everything. I thought that their house was near the sporting goods store, but no, it's like 20 miles away. So never mind. Okay. So getting back over here, Sheriff said the report involved a home on Cottonwood Avenue in Moreno Valley, just down the road from the Big 5 Sporting Goods, where Rebecca, 41, claimed an unseen man knocked her unconscious and carried off Emmanuel. It doesn't matter. I was going to say, like, you can definitely, like, somebody can punch somebody else and knock them out for sure. But it does actually take some skill to do that on purpose. So if I hear that somebody got punched and they like one sucker punch and they get knocked out, I'm suspicious. It can happen, but anyway. The couple also has a 2-year-old daughter who is now in the custody of the Riverside County Child Protective Services, according to NBC4. Quote, the investigation is related to the Haros and no further details are available, close quote, authorities said in a statement referring to the CA report. On August 21st, 2025 at 12:30 p.m., deputies were dispatched to the 2300 block of Cottonwood Avenue, Moreno Valley, regarding the report of CA. Now, I just want to point out an inconsistency here. August 21st is not the day that Emmanuel was reported to have been taken by the fisticuffs throwing assailant. right? That was a week before, on the 14th. So I'm not sure what they're talking about, but we are going to go to the other document, the calls for service, okay? Investigators responded to the location regarding the allegations, and the investigation remains ongoing. No further details are available at this time. Rebecca maintained Emmanuel had been abducted even after her arrest, insisting she had nothing to do with her son's disappearance and that he could still be alive. Quote, I want to be out looking for my baby. I will not give up. I will not blah, 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 blah. Okay? All right. Let's go over to the call for service. Now, when I looked at this, and I kind of have to, because it doesn't want to scroll for me when I zoom up on it. I want you guys to be able to see everything. And I think, no, gotta go. There we go. You can see everything there. Okay. On the 14th, there was an AOD call, which I think, at least in my research, that means assisted other department or agency. So that may have been the call at the Big Five. I don't see anything on the 21st, at least from Riverside County Sheriff's, though on the 20th, man, a lot of things happened that day on the 20th. Keeping the peace, suspicious person. What is a check? Hold on, I have to remember what this is. I have it. Where do I have it? I have it right here. A check is area check, and then a 242 is a battery. So one of the things that I'm concerned about is that maybe people are descending on that house, or like somebody. I mean, we don't want to do this to anybody, okay? We don't want to go to a house. We don't want to threaten. We don't want to dox. We don't want to do any of those things, okay? The reason that I share this address is simply because it does seem to be the center of a crime, not just somebody's private residence, not only someone's private residence. But on the 20th, I'm not sure what all that is. It seems to me that it probably is people who are upset at the ROs, like for good reason, and are causing trouble there at the house. Okay, let's go to the document that was filed today. Okay, this is the felony complaint. Should we pause here for a second to read you guys your comments? Or should we? I think I'm just going to go on, okay? All right, Superior Court of California, County of Riverside. By the way, I looked it up. The Inland Empire is comprised of two counties, Riverside and San Bernardino counties. They are on the east side of Southern California to the east of Los Angeles. So when they say Inland Empire, they're saying Riverside, San Bernardino. Okay, our defendants are Jake Mitchell Haro and Rebecca Renee Haro, our parents of the year here. All right, count one. The undersigned, under penalty of perjury upon information and belief, declares that the above-named defendants, Jake Mitchell Haro, Rebecca Renee Haro, committed a violation of Penal Code Section 187, Subdivision A, a felony, in that on or about August 5th through and including August 14th. That is a big window, 9-day window. Well, inclusive, that's 10 days, right? In the county of Riverside, state of California, the defendants did willfully and lawfully murder baby doe EH, which I know why they do that. It's juvenile, but Emmanuel Haro, right? A human being. And this right here is, it's 25 years. The possible sentence could be